Welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nick King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox, and together we're here to explore, understand and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. And today we are going to do another topic that came up in our live show that we didn't cover on the night, because, we're getting there eventually. Even though it's been a little while. So the question was, did you reach your potential at school? No, there we go. That was a short podcast, wasn't it?
Oh, well, for me, the answer would be yes and no. And it's quite a live question, actually, because so I was talking the other day to a lovely woman whose daughter I know, actually, of old, who is a performance poet. And her daughter went to Oxford, got a double first. Didn't know that, actually, even though I knew her daughter. And
I didn't know double firsts existed, but carry on.
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know how I think it actually don't. I mean, it sounds really impressive, doesn't it? Not just a first, but a double first. I think you get. I don't know actually what it means. Presumably, you do two subjects or something. You can't get a double first anywhere else. It's not even a thing. Bit like how University Challenge accepts like 20 Oxford colleges, and no matter how many colleges any other university has. Oh my God. Anyway, I was just like, ooh, double first. And she said, and she was talking about her daughter's A-level results, right? And she got 4 A's at A-level and an S-level. And at that immediate point, out of pure modesty, which I'm not exercising here, I didn't immediately say, oh, I got 4 A's at A-level and an S-level. What I did say was, oh, I got an S-level, because I never heard anyone talk about them before. Now, an S-level, I just had this really vague memory of it, right? And it turned, so S stands for special, and it's a special paper that you can do. And so hers was in English literature, so was mine. And teachers this is what happened at my Bradford Comprehensive School. The teachers just gave it to me and I sat it on my own in a room. And because I was really good at English, I was just like, oh, they've given me a harder paper. And I was just like, all right, yeah, whatever. And it asked quite complex essay questions. And I got a level 1, which is the highest. There's only level 1, level 2, and why did you even bother sitting it, you twit, level? But because no one in my life ever asked about it, right? And no one said anything about it. I've not really mentioned it till now. And in this conversation, because, right, she said, oh, yeah, she got an S level, a special level. She got a level 1. I mean, it's really rare. That's really hard to do. So, and she was conveying pride, and I was a bit like, oh, I'm enjoying your pride and celebrating of your daughter. But I got one of those as well, and I'm feeling a bit uncelebrated now, because how I celebrated was I went out and bought the Billy Joel album River of Dreams on tape cassette to celebrate my A-level results, which obviously was a great thing to do. But by the sound of this, I should have been buying myself a cruise to the Antarctic or something. So bear in mind this is a very long anecdote. Sorry, I'm not sure this is going to address the question, but it will ultimately. Right. So this was back in 1993. I got my level 1 S level. And I Google it, because Google was not available then. And it's going, oh, this is a paper pretty much exclusively taken by people who are going to go to Oxbridge. And I was like, oh, well, but I wasn't going to go to Oxbridge. Why did my teachers get me to take it? this led to this whole conversation about why I never applied to Oxbridge. And I think the missing factor in all of this is because my neurodivergent self recognised it was in some way not a very good idea. But that was a very unsaid and unspoken part of it. So we'll come back to this because I feel like I've been talking for ages, but there's something for me to excavate. Basically, in one way, yes, I did fulfil my potential at school. 4 A's at A level and an S level, level one, did I mention? On the other hand, I, I didn't. I didn't at all. So I had a good memory and I could write well. And at that time, that'd get you pretty far. And I thought that was enough in life. And spoiler alert, it isn't. And I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea what it meant that I had this facility or what I could do with it. And there were certain things holding me back from doing what I could do with it. So, in one way, apparently, on paper, yes. In another way, no, absolutely not.
It's that anecdote, isn't it, that the fish in the tree thing, if we're judging fishes by the ability to climb the tree, it's gonna think it's a failure for all its life. And I have just randomly been through the stressful period where my child's just done the GCSEs, which I feel like there was a missing parenting handbook about like how that is stressful for me. I don't understand how that happened, but it was. Um Now they've done GCSEs for several years. They've been educated outside of school. So they did their first GCSE at 12 and they are now 16. So it would be the normal year they would do the GCSEs. And they have been dragged kicking and screaming through the national curriculum for the English GCSEs because it is not their interest. It is not where their monotropism lies. And quite frankly, I mean, if you listen to the live podcast, you will hear Zed ranting about reading between the lines. As an update, if I could have written that English exam paper for them with questions that were appropriate for them to answer, it is essentially what they got. Their large 40-mark English language question on paper two was essentially about education in the outdoors and its effect on well-being. And as Zed shared in the live, they've been going to forest school for the last 5 years and have taken part in research to the same effect of that question. And honestly, I probably should have put the lottery on that night. So Zed has sat both their English exams with questions essentially pertaining to their interests. And although it is too early at this point to know what kind of grade they've got, they had a significantly better shot of a decent grade because the questions pertained to their interests. And in the last 2 or 3 years of exam papers, they very much hadn't. So if they had sat their English exams in 24 or 23 or 22, they would have received a significantly different result as to what they are potentially going to get in 2025 because the questions literally could have been written for them. And that's just luck.
Yeah, yeah. And
But that grade will follow them around for the rest of their life.
absolutely, and I'm chuffed it's on the side of good luck. But that feels like a really vivid illustration of it. And actually, returning to my English literature paper, I suppose that my English teachers would have got me to sit the S level because actually books and reading generally and thinking about books, that was my special interest. So whatever pay, I can't remember what the questions were on this S level thing, but they would have, I could have waffled about any aspect of literature at that point, whether I'd read the book or not. Actually, brackets side note, how that as a question is brilliant, but how are the kids who've just been sitting cooped up in academy schools for several years, how will they have been equipped to answer that question?
Well, if you go to the Tiki-Toki, they didn't like it. Like there is a lot of TikTok that is talking about that exam paper immediately after, because obviously as well, it's not just like there's one exam board for English, there's three, so it was the AQA one. Um, and there is because it was very much all of it was nature based. All of the questions were quite sort of like nature and birds and such things. And there is quite a lot of teenagers sitting on TikTok being like, nah, I didn't like that. That wasn't great. I don't feel like that was the exam for me. And Zed's sitting there going, yes, you will not believe the question I got. And this is the thing, isn't it? That's sort of fundamentally the problem that we have with education now, that it really is just about the moment of the day. But then that ends up supposedly representing your skill set for the rest of your life.
Exactly, and that is terrifying. And as you say about parents not having or neurodivergent parents, maybe in particular, not having a handbook for how stressful these exams are. I've got a neurodivergent friend whose children are also in GCSE times, and it is seeming to spike the already very high levels of stress that to me seem to come inherently with being a parent. There's a lot of ferrying people about, dealing with their anxiety levels, and the fact that they're having to think, I can't remember how on earth I could have done it being so monotropic, but you're juggling multiple subjects in the air at the same time as well and trying to put them in your head.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And Vicely, the one of the higher maths papers which said that last year was notoriously difficult and like was leaked onto the internet almost immediately. And for context, it was an hour and a half paper with 23 plus questions that had sections within them. And I gave it to people who had degrees based in maths, the final question, and it took all of them above 20 minutes to complete. And that was an hour and a half paper.
Gosh, God.
And I think there's going to be an irony to potentially Zed getting better grades in English than they have in their STEM subjects.
Yeah.
But again, it's just on the day, and if you have the ability to bring that from your head, and I think, and then we're claiming that's sort of your potential. And I don't think that's true.
And I do have a vague memory of, and I've heard that this still happens, that teachers will talk openly to kids in schools about, well, you've got to work, you've got to do this in this way because you've got to fulfill your potential. Um, I was always aware that a lot of the things that teachers were saying somehow didn't quite apply to me in a very clear way. And some of that was arrogantly aware in, I would say, quite stereotypically autistic. I'm going to teach myself. I'm going to sort of do it in my own way. And you're over there waffling on about something or other. And anyway, that's not really how I work. And it just seems to be going okay. So I'll just crack on. Like that, there was a an arrogance there, which served me quite well. But that thing of, I mean, homework, I did. The
You never
idea,
did it.
I basically didn't do it, no. And it was usually all right, or at least I would do it on the bus. I would do it the last minute because I worked quickly, and it served me well apart from in art because I was very bad at art at the best of times, and art done in 5 minutes on the bus by a person who has no facility whatsoever really for drawing, painting, or visually conceiving of things is terrible. That was the only topic where I got called out. And in a way, it was the only topic where I got seen, I think, for my actual working practices. It'd be like 3 out of 10. This is terrible. You have put no effort in a weird way. It was like that for all my topics, really, but they just couldn't see.
I think
So,
as well now in 2025, you can't get away with not doing your homework like that. One, partially because it's online, and two, like you're going to go in isolation, Kate. You're going in isolation for not doing it. Want to help keep our podcast going strong, a bit like my coffee, you can leave a tip via our PayPal link on our website, Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, and your support keeps everything running smoothly, again like my coffee, and we couldn't do it without you.
hang on, this is a new concept. What, they have to do their homework online?
Yeah, like in a portal.
A portal? Oh, yeah, like at university. Whoa. So that means they can see when you did it. So if you did it, for example, just hypothetically, in the break while walking down the corridor towards the lesson, they would be thinking, hang on, why were you in this portal at 10:39 and the lesson starts at 10:40? Something has gone a bit, oh no, Well, see, thank goodness I'm old. Thank goodness for that. Though this would be terrible. I couldn't sit down and do homework. Like I couldn't because it's boring. Being at school all day. Why would you do more?
And there are schools locally to us that provide hours of like homework outside of like school hours. And it's now, I mean, literally, maths and English GCSE is practically compulsory. And you are essentially told you're a failure if you don't get them because you kind of like you're not going to be able to take the next step of your education without it. Education is essentially now compulsory till 18. Um, and and 30% of the children sitting that English and maths exam will fail because they change the grade boundaries. So
Yeah,
no, it's
preposterous.
not like everyone's getting a level four and above. If everyone answers the questions at the level four and above level, they change the grade boundaries. So there is a percentage of our young people failing no matter what. And again, some of these questions, I'm like, why do you need to know? Even if we go back and like the tiny people who are 11 who are sitting their SATs, I looked at this year's SATs paper and I was like, why do you need to know that? Like, why do you need to know that at 11? Why do we need to know what a preposition is at 11? Why can't
Oh,
we
yeah.
write?
Writers who've won prizes and do it for a job don't know what a preposition is. The way English is taught now is horribly horrible. And writers are aware of having to go in and go, please don't write how they've told you to write in your lessons and your exams because that is bad writing. But that's almost a separate topic.
And
See, there's
then the memory test as well. So you were saying like sort of now I didn't at my GCSE level had to remember text until A level. We went into GCSE with like an anthology of text and poetry and stuff like that. But this generation at GCSE level, I was saying to you, wasn't I, that you have to essentially memorize 15 poems and you don't know which one you're going to use. And I'm like, I'm not sure Kate remembers 15 of her own poems. Like, which I think you said you did, but then you wouldn't be able to write a paper on them.
a, a performance poet, but yes, exactly. Would I want to answer questions on them that some person who was not really familiar with the workings of how poets work? No, they'd be like, did the poet intend to make this analogy between mushrooms and lighthouses? And I'd be like, whoa, I didn't know my subconscious had magically done that. That's amazing. But that is not what I meant at all, no. That's how most writing will go. Going back to the Oxbridge thing,
Mm.
it was very so basically there was it wasn't that I suddenly realized in this conversation that actually quite subtly my teachers had actually been trying to get me to apply to Oxford. I mean, when I say subtly, one thing was they took some of us on a trip to Oxford, so I suppose that's not that subtle,
That's
but
really not that subtle, Kit.
subtle is it?
No.
But when and I just thought, oh, I mean, a lot of this was a class-based thing. I thought there's a lot of posh people here. Why? Oh no! And it was such an unfamiliar environment, and I think I'd picked this up a lot. So my mum was very not a quiet revolutionary really, but she was like she would not have thrived in that environment. So there was a strong sense of not for us, not for me, not for me. Um, and then my English teacher would give me difficult books to read, like Ridley Walker by Russell Hoban, because my other friend had actually applied to Oxford, been interviewed, not got in, and was saying that in her house the only books they had were Geoffrey Archer and Catherine Cookson. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we basically similar in our house, but I was given books by my English teacher. Um, I it's almost as if what was the other thing they did that was trying to get me there? Some other thing. I was like, it was as if they're going, go on. And I wouldn't. I changed my course that I was going to apply for at university from English to basically media studies. The rationale I gave was, well, I can read books anytime, which is a fair point. But it was because I didn't want to apply to Oxford because I had seen it and gone, it is not for me. But I'm thinking, how much of that was neurodivergent stuff? Do you know what I mean? It was so unfamiliar. It was so. And then the woman I was talking to said, do you regret not applying? And by the way, in my arrogance, I totally believe if I'd applied, I'd have got in. Like, I'm almost not questioning that. And I'm like, they'd have gone, wow, she's so interesting and thinks so interestingly in the interview. Of course, I'd have flipping got in. Brackets might not have. And I said, well, I wish I'd made an informed decision, because what I wanted to do at that time was be a journalist or work in the creative arts. If I'd known, I could have, couldn't I? I could have gone to Oxford, and then all my friends would have owned the Times, and then could have gone to work for their dad's film company or whatever.
You would have rejected your northern roots and wrote half of your books.
That's the other thing, isn't it? There was that element,
especially in like the late 90s, early noughties, especially then.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
So there's this other life, isn't there? This alternative life that I could have probably realistically could have had, but I had no sense of, no idea what that meant. I was like arrogant. Oh, I'll get there anyway.
You're not meant to at 18 either, though, are you? Like all this, like go get a degree at 18, and also the phrase that education's wasted on the young. And there is very much, and I think that narrative was very, very much in place when we were young, that, you know, the certain amongst us did GCSEs, we did A levels, and we went and got a degree, and that was the correct route in life. And there is currently meant to be like a rejection of that, particularly of the millennial parents whose children are coming up to that age. And I am on board with that. I'm definitely telling my kids not to go to uni until you decide if you need a degree. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's quite an expensive thing to go for laughs now. Do you know what I mean?
The other thing, isn't it? At least I was in the last year where there was a loan, but it was little. Most of it was covered by a grant, and now you're coming out with 50 or 60,000 pounds of debt.
Plus, yeah. And that's just your debt, because there's this thing now where your family's like income's taken into account as to how much they should be financially supporting you as well.
Yeah, well, and that would have been the case then, but I was living in a bedsit when I was. This is just. I'm a bit like.
But this is the other thing. You'd recently had a trauma at the time.
Oh yeah, we did talk about that the other. Oh, I tell you what, I was flipping annoyed, right? So I did an interview at City University for their journalism course. Again, I'm completely oblivious, because if I'd taken that course, I could have gone on to work for a newspaper, a national newspaper, which I would really have liked to do. But anyway, so I'm interviewed. It was about 3 days after my dad, who I had recently tracked down, had died. But I was absolutely fine, bang on fine in that interview. And I only learned afterwards that my sixth form teacher told the interview people that my dad had just died. And I remember being furious. And I now understand, of course they kindly told my interviewers that, in case there was any hint of it. However, alexithymia, dissociation, I was totally fine. I was probably on my best game. I was probably full of adrenaline. But I always thought, well, I'll never know if that acceptance was because I was clearly so great, or because dead dad. And I didn't take it. I went to Loughborough. Having said this, so at Loughborough, famous sports university, Paula Radcliffe went, Seb Coe went, left some steps after him, weirdly. Did you know about the Seb Coe steps? It's these special, really long steps that are really long that you can't easily walk down, but runners can lope up them. That says everything you need to know about Loughborough, apart from Purple Nasties, which was a bit like cider and black, but with something else that rugby players used to drink and then vomit up. Anyway, Loughborough in some ways was a completely unsuitable place for me, but some part of me, I think, a neurodivergent part, went, hang on, it's a campus university. That was quite a big thing, actually. Everything is all in one space. It's not in a big city. It's not in London. There's something quite safe and contained about it. And I went for that. And I had a very typically autistic person experience, which we'll talk about another time. I won't say it was easily good, but actually, I think there was this protective instinct in me that went, don't go to an environment that is the most weird environment you've ever encountered in your life, e.g., Oxford. Don't go to a big city. Go somewhere quite safe. And if you're operating at that level and thinking about it in terms of school and the potential you fulfill or do not fulfill, well, actually, the potential for a lot of neurodivergent people, fulfilling your potential would mean not having a terribly catastrophic burnout that impacts your life forever, not accruing several mental health issues that will dog you for years, and finding some things you really enjoy doing. Success, winner, basically.
And we can't all define our ability of reaching our potential as going to Oxford because realistically, 99.9% of us aren't.
Good point. No. Oh, there was one thing though. I did, and I meant this very strongly. If someone had just told me that the only way you could get approached to be an MI5 was go to an Oxbridge place, I would have applied. Would have applied then. Luckily, I would have been protected from the knowledge that there is absolutely no way that they would have recruited me from Bradford as a spy. But still, it would have made me go. So dangle strange hooks for your neurodivergent offspring, and perhaps they will follow these strange hooks to things that they do want to do. That's not our ending. That's not me Kevin McLeod
Is
moment.
that not your Kevin McLeoding?
No, 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 definitely. I don't think I should do the Kevin McLeod moment because once again, I seem to have a really weird trajectory of thing. You've got children and stuff. You should, yeah.
Hmm. You're right, though, because if I think about, so in Unpacking Understanding, I asked all 29 of yous essentially, what would you tell your younger self, right? And every single one of them, near enough, if there's a theme, says don't follow the linear expectation. And the linear expectation is get certain amounts of grades at school, go do some sort of higher level, A level slash course, go to uni, and then somehow your life will be set up and made. And that isn't the truth. And often for all of us, even if some of us did that, it isn't necessarily how life worked out. It isn't necessarily the path that we needed to take either. And I think there is a lot of pressure put on young people from a very, very young age. We're talking, if we're thinking about SATs, they're 10. These are tiny human beings whose brain is no exam that you do between SATs, GCSE, A level, or uni. Your brain is fully developed. None of them because your brain is not fully done being developing until you're 25. I think everyone should give themselves a break and remove the idea of potential from neuronormative standards. Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nick King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk or visit our website neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.